All right. So this episode was one that I've been planning to do ever since I started playing the season. And I really thought this episode would just be kind of a fun one where you just recap how everything went and you're like at the end, wow, this was a fun experience. I'm glad I did it. I learned some things and didn't enjoy some things, but overall, it was a great experience. I mean, that's kind of true. I can kind of say that, but what happened this season just was completely unexpected, and I don't know how this just happens. So many things just went wrong for our team. And there was just twist after twist of random things going wrong for our team that I don't know. This was quite an experience, and it's kind of hard to pull concrete lessons from the season. But we're going to try and do that. So, let's start. Let's first set the context of what happened, right? So I played competitive TF2 in North America in the RGL League. I played in the newcomer division on a team called TF2 Africa. So I've played competitive Team Fortress 2 before. I played on an amateur team around a year and a half ago. And that team, somehow, even though the skill level on that team was worse, somehow we actually survived to the end of the season compared to this one, which is a spoiler. But so basically, I was playing in the newcomer division, right? And I initially wanted to play as soldier because the first experience I had with competitive, I played scout. I did it through the newbie mix program, which is basically a way where instead of you finding your own team, you just fill out a Google form, and then these people, the people in the program, will match a bunch of people who filled out the Google form with each other to make teams and give you a coach as well. So the main thing that was different about that program was in the form you had to like specify your class preferences. And I think back then I also wanted to play soldier or med. And I got put on scout just because a lot of other players, they had different preferences. And I was more of fulfilling a fill role, basically filling in the gaps that were needed. And on that team, it was playing scout. So that experience, I mean, playing scout is fun, but my aim has never been the best. My like actual hit scan aim where you're tracking people and you're flicking to people, it's never been the best. I've played FPS games so long and I'm just still not good. I'm still a washed motherfucker who really can't hit anything and be that good. So I wanted to play soldier even back then because I think what makes Team Fortress 2 so special as a game are the two classes, or really the three classes where it's something different from normal FPS games. Soldier, Demo, and Medic. I mean, Medic maybe not as much, but really Soldier and Demo. The mechanics and how you play those classes are so different from other FPS games. And I think that's what makes competitive Team Fortress 2 all the more exciting. Because scout stuff, it's cool. You're shooting people. It's often the strongest class in the game just because of how strong hit scan is. But man, projectiles are just, I think, what makes TF2 actually so fun to play. Because it's what's unique about the game, and it is what allows such a high skill ceiling. And even though I'll never even begin to even be able to reach and jump up to even try and touch halfway up to the skill ceiling, I'm that far below. I'm literally on the ground with super glue and some 10-pound shoes with magnets on the soles as well. I'm that low on the floor. But even despite all of that, playing Soldier and Demo are really fun. So that was a really long-winded discussion to say that's what I was looking for going into the season. I was trying to play as Soldier. So I looked for a team in Discord, on the official RGL Discord. They have a few channels where you can look for teams. And I put myself in the looking for teams chat, and I also browsed the looking for players chat, where I was just like, all right, what teams are going to be playing in newcomer or amateur? And they're looking for soldiers. So at the beginning of the season, I basically tried out for 2 teams, really only one team, which was the team I joined, because the other team, I joined their server and I responded to the people, but they just never held tryouts. The team just completely died really, really fast before the season even started, because I guess they just didn't have the players, and I never saw any tryouts happening. So really, I only had one team that I tried out for. And so this team, originally at the time when I tried out for it, there were already only 3 or 4. There were only 4 players on the team at the time when I tried out. No, there were 5 players on the team. So there was, I think I'm gonna name out names just to make things easier. So there was Noob, who was the demo. There was Fathom, who was playing Soldier, Faded on Flank Scout, and Krill on Medic. So there were 4 players. I was the 5th one joining, and we still needed one more player afterwards. So already starting off, first scrim, I go with these people. It was already such a clusterfuck. One thing I've completely learned from now 2 seasons of competitive TF2, people are so disorganized, and people just don't know what they're doing, and people are late all the fucking time. Now, I already knew this before from casting games, because oftentimes matches would have a set time that they should start, and us casters would be ready for that, and the time comes and the match doesn't start because the players haven't showed up, or the server isn't ready, or somebody is taking a bathroom break. So many different possible reasons. Either way, in the end, the match never starts on time. So I don't know what I was expecting now being on the other side as a player, but yeah, I shouldn't have been surprised. This shit was just going to happen all the time again, where people would show up late and things would never start on time. So that was already, so besides just people not showing up on time, it was already such a clusterfuck starting off. I should have known this was an indication for how the team and the whole season was going to go. But basically, the first scrim I ever did, we were playing on maps that weren't even going to be in the season. They weren't even in the map pool. We were playing on maps that we would never play as a team when we're actually playing matches. But somehow we were playing these as tryouts. And the second thing that I want to very much stress about lessons that I've learned from the season, either these being new lessons or reinforced lessons. Number 1 lesson, as I already said, people are always late and people are disorganized. Number 2, people are incredibly immature. And I don't mean immature, I can mean immature in multiple different ways. Immature either means in their personality, and that can manifest in different ways. That can either be they're exceedingly obnoxious, or they can be just not good teammates, or they could just be, immature covers those 2. Basically, they're either annoying as hell, or they're whiny, or they just don't communicate well. There's just so many different facets of undesirable traits that TF2 players have. And that's what I've learned. It's better to assume that any TF2 player you come across is going to have some gradient of these undesirable traits. And if you assume that, you will never be disappointed, and instead you can only be surprised in a good way that some people are actually better and actual decent human beings, because that's not going to happen very often. And if you have it the other way, where you expect goodness and maturity out of people, you are going to be disappointed going into playing anything with the TF2 community. So going into that first scrim already, first initial impressions of the team. One person, okay, the person who I even first contacted to join the team, this person is very whiny, incredibly whiny, and he's the noob, and he was playing demo. And the thing is, this guy, I don't know, a lot of the things that I just described about immaturity, right? I think it can be attributed just due to the age of a lot of these players. And, you know, they can't, that's why I don't really fault them that much, right? Because I think if I was that age when I was still in high school, either as a junior or senior, actually, honestly, I think I would be better than these people. But I know at that age, people are still developing. And I know back then, even though I don't think I was annoying to this regard, and I don't think I would act like that to other people, I know that I had definitely other social deficiencies and just disadvantages, things that now looking back, it's like, wow, I was really like that. I knew I had that also back in high school. So, you know, while it didn't manifest in the same ways as what these people had, I can give them a little bit of a pass because, you know, they're still young, and TF2 competitive, it's just this large age range. You're going to have adults, you're going to have college kids, you're going to have high schoolers, and that's just how it is, and you have to expect less of high schoolers. Regardless, though, even if we expect less, this dude was still whiny. Okay, so even though you can give some caveats and explanations on why and reasoning, it doesn't change the fact that he was whiny as hell. So why was he whiny? Well, one of the main things is a lot of the times when he would start tilting and get annoyed in games, so either that would be because he's dying a lot, he's not getting heals, so he's dying a lot, he's not doing as well as he wants in the game, he's not like getting kills, he's not doing damage, he's messing up on certain things, this guy will just stop talking. Okay? Now, this is one archetype of the immature or annoying or undesirable player profile that I came upon during my experience. The people that just don't talk a lot and they tilt, right? Now, he was one of them. He didn't talk a lot and he tilted. And but at least it wasn't annoying, outright annoying, because he not talking, you know, it's annoying that people are not talking and not communicating and not contributing to the game, but at least it's not like he's, you know, spouting abuse and like saying really obnoxious things. So that was one problem he had. He would tilt and not calm. The other thing that really was, I think, the most annoying thing about me, and this connects back to point one, the lesson one that you must learn, and that I've learned from this season. You cannot rely on anything with timeliness with these people. This guy, and this was not just timeliness, this was just responsibility. You can't expect any sense of responsibility from any player because you are going to be disappointed, and that's what happened with this guy. So the noob had a bad habit of baiting. So what does baiting mean? Baiting means you say you're going to do something and then you don't do it. Now, I don't mean something as superficial as saying like in the game, I will trap off this, and then he doesn't trap it off and somebody comes in and kills me. It's like, that happens, we're playing the game. We're talking about out of game stuff and baiting. So what happened with Noob? What did he bait? Well, he had this great habit of baiting scrims. So scrimmages are the practice games that teams play before matches to try and ready themselves into a competitive mindset and ready their team cohesion and the skills that they need to succeed in the game. You know, I'm literally explaining what practice is. These are practice games. So this guy would just bait practice games. And that means there's an expectations when we set like a time for a practice game, you should show up. And he would not show up. He would just not show up. Now, I mean, this is perfectly fine because sometimes life happens, things happen and you can't show up to things. When you're an adult, or maybe not even an adult, when you're just more mature and you're more responsible, I think the courteous thing to do is if you have plans with other people and you're not going to show up, it's usually a pretty courteous and expected thing that you'll tell the people that are going to be affected by you not showing up beforehand that you're not going to show up. So then they can prepare that you're not going to show up and then either adjust their plans accordingly or get somebody else to replace you in whatever plans that you originally had. Well, he would bait the scrims and he wouldn't show up and he wouldn't tell us before. So this just happened multiple times of baiting where he would not show up to scrims. And then the thing is, what was just the whammy of irresponsibility is he didn't even think it was really that much of an issue, in the sense that he wouldn't show up and then 30 minutes later when we're already playing scrims and we have a ringer who is basically a substitute player for whoever, or a substitute player for him, then he just like come into the voice call and like act like nothing happened. And sometimes when we ask him, why did you not show up? Why did you bait? He'd give some of the dumbest reasons I've ever heard. Some of the dumbest reasons. Well, people, actually, I heard this multiple times from 2 different people at least. Reasons including, I just took a nap. Like, bro, set an alarm. Like, what are you doing? Other ones was, I'm watching movies with my family. That's valid. That's a perfectly valid thing to like skip scrims. Honestly, I like family time is important. The thing is, you should tell us before you do that, but no, he doesn't do that. He just impromptu goes with his family and decides to not be irresponsible and not tell his team that who's relying on him to be at scrims, right? So this was character 1, the first real main character. And the first person where these lessons, lesson 1 of you can't expect literally any kind of responsibility or maturity from these people, right? You can't expect any responsibility. I'm going to say he was actually, I don't think he was that immature. Maybe he was immature in the sense of not being responsible, but he was more of a token of irresponsibility and just not caring about being a good teammate in the sense of communicating if you're going to be there. That kind of teammate, right? And also in the sense of a teammate of just shutting off and not talking when things go wrong in the game. Okay? So that was the first player. Starting out, as I already said, there were 4 players already on the team. There was Faded, Fathom, Noob, and Krill. So let's go through each of these players because they're all going to show up later on in this video. For sure, you'll get a good description of these people, of the lessons that I learned from each of these people. So let's start with Krill, just because he is the most non-noteworthy. I don't think Krill really had any issues as a person. Honestly, I would have enjoyed playing with them, like stuck playing with them. I just think because they weren't annoying, they showed up on time, and they did everything baseline required and expected of a normal, responsible teammate and human being, okay? They weren't annoying, they showed up when they had to, and they did the things that they had to. The only issues we had as a team with Krill, maybe like the one thing is they did not communicate a lot in game. But I think that was more of a game thing and not as like a person thing. It wasn't because they got tilted or whatever. It's just like they were already a shyer person who didn't talk a lot. And that was just not going to be as good in this like team environment where communication is very key. But that was not more of a shot against their personality. It was just like that's how they are, and that's something that they have to work on if they want to be on a team. But it's not like something that, it's not because of other toxic bad traits. It's not caused by inherently bad things like being immature in the sense of if you get really annoyed, you just shut off. It's just like they're just naturally shy, if you understand. So the reason they were originally on the team and then they eventually got kicked off it was all because of their in-game skills, which, it happens. Like, we're all on different skill levels, and we wanted as a team to be at the top and to win, right? So having a player who really was not on our level and wasn't at the level that we needed to actually be successful in our team goals, we just had to kick them. So basically, Krill, nothing against them. Honestly, a good teammate. And if they actually improved, first of all, in their in-game communication, but mostly in their in-game skills, they'd be a great teammate to be with. I have no complaints about them as a person. Okay, so the other two players, we have Faded and Fathom. And we're going to get to them because they have quite major roles later on in the story. But we've set the scene first, okay? I joined this team, and our goal is to be at the top of Newcomer, the division that we're playing in, right? We want to be first place at the end of playoffs, playing against all the other playoff teams and coming out on top at the end of the season. So right now, it's just those 4 players, Noob, Krill, Faded, Fathom, and me. Now we got 5 players. We need to find a 6th player, right? And this is all still before the season has started. So we have time, right? The season, like when we have to first play our first match, that hasn't happened yet, right? So we're going around looking for players. And we find this one player. This player called TF2 Africa. Okay? So that's kind of a goofy name, TF2 Africa. So he also has another name of SMD or Eddie. Okay? So this player, first impressions. I already kind of knew about this player before because I have played around in Pug servers. Pugs are pickup games. It's just basically impromptu games where teams, you have a bunch of players and they just organize themselves into 2 different teams and then you play a game, right? It's just very impromptu, kind of like if you went to a park and played basketball, that kind of thing, where you just like quickly pick teams and then you'd play. So I'd seen him around in pickup games before, and I thought he was a good player, but some of the things that I noticed from pickup games would come to haunt us later on down the line before the season even started. So one of the things was he was just in pickup games. He was pretty skilled as a demo man in terms of DM. DM meaning deathmatch, meaning the ability to kill enemy players, to shoot at enemy players. So he was pretty competent in that regard. But he was not a big commer, and that was already something I noticed from playing with him in pickup games. And what I mean by calming is he wasn't very good at communicating things. He wasn't very loud, and he wouldn't really say things like, I'm going to be here, I'm watching this, I killed this person. He wasn't a very talkative person. So, this kind of sounds like Krill. He was better than Krill in communicating, but it still wasn't the best, right? So another thing is lots of the times on these pickup games and in these pickup servers, he was playing Demo Man. But the last position that we needed here on our team was another scout. It was, in fact, Pocket Scout. So, as I said, the noob, the person who I've already talked a lot about, he was the one playing Demo Man. Now, this will become important as the season progresses because the first person that we cut is Krill. No, that's not true. I don't think the first person we cut... Oh, I can't even remember if the first person we cut was Krill or Noob. We cut one of them. I think the first person we cut was Noob, though. And it was because he was always late, right? Before we cut Noob, we picked up this person, TF2 Africa or SMD or Eddie, on Scout. Now, him on Scout wasn't bad. and I think it was serviceable. But the main reason why I'm bringing this up and why I was talking about how in pickup games he wanted to play his demo, he often played his demo and that was his favorite class, is the tension was there already at the start. We picked him up to play as scout. But after playing a few nights of scrims, like when the team got into a trolly mood. So one thing about the noob is he also didn't really like to play demo that much. He really liked to just switch around and fuck around and play different classes, right? So already you can see where this is going. TF2 Africa usually plays demo. We picked him up on scout. The noob plays demo, but he likes to fuck around and play a bunch of different classes. Already after a few nights, we had our first team turmoil in the sense that TF2 Africa, like some of these games, he was like saying, put me on demo, let me play demo. And the noob would oblige in the sense that he didn't even seem to really want to play demo and he just like play scout instead. So we were already having role switches in this sense. One player who we picked up a scout is already playing demo, and the other player that was originally demo, he's already just fucking around doing everything. So once this kept happening in the sense that we were like, okay, we should try and practice as a team with everybody on the original roles, but with both of these players really kind of wanting to switch with each other, eventually we were like, okay, why don't we just have TF2 Africa play as Demo Man? Because, I mean, Noob doesn't want to play Demo Man, it seems like, that much. And in some ways we thought, TF2 Africa is a better Demo Man. So if our main goal as a team is to actually, win the season, this will bolster our chances because we think he's a better Demo Man, right? We thought about that, and maybe Noob could serve as a scout. It was around this time when Noob really started picking up all the baiting that I said. All the times where he would just not show up to scrims and he wouldn't give any forewarning and all of the annoying things like that. Oh, one of the main things that I have never seen anybody do this. Can you even imagine this happening in real life? This is what Noob did. So we once were we're gonna scrim against this team. And then this team that we're gonna play against, they didn't have enough players, right? Okay, that's fine because we didn't have all our players, right? So we'd still need ringers as well. Ringers being substitute players. The noob decided to ring for the other team, to substitute himself in for the other team. Have you ever heard of that? What? Can you just listen to that and understand what I just said? How does that make any sense? I'm still thinking about how that happened, and I'm like, what was he thinking? What was he thinking? What kind of decision making is that? Where you are on a team. You are on the main roster of a team. Yet for some reason at a scrimmage, you are going to decide to play for the other team instead of practicing with your team, when the other team can easily get a substitute player. So you don't need to do that. And the double whammy of this is, first of all, you're not playing for our team. You're substituting for the other team. But now we need to get a substitute as well for you. Like that substitute that could have played for their team now is playing for our team. Like, how does that make any sense? What goes through his mind to think, I'm going to sub for the other team? So after that happened, and after all the strings, all the more consistent and annoying baits just like keep happening over and over again, we're like, our team decided as a whole, we're like, okay, I think we need to replace this guy. Because especially after that sub thing happened, I was so confused, and I was just like, what is this guy thinking? Who am I playing with here? And so that was like just the confusion part about him. And then the annoyance started building with all of the baiting that happened, right? So we kicked him off the team. Okay. So now it's just, now it's basically just SMD Oh, okay. So now I know. So I'm gonna get the timeline correct. We actually kicked Krill first. I already talked about the reasons why we kicked Krill. They just were not good enough as a player. So we kicked Krill, and then we brought in this player called Fiji, who is an ex teammate of TF2 Africa slash SMD. They'd played together on a team in a previous season. So basically, we brought him in as a medic replacement. He plays as medic. So for unfortunately for him, he never played as medic. All his prior experience, he played as soldier. So now he was coming in and learning a new class. But he was a mechanically good player, and he had good comms and a good personality. So we liked him immediately, and we wanted him on the team and playing as medic. And even though it was his first time playing as medic, he picked it up quite quickly, and he was a good enough medic. Okay, so now that the timeline is fixed, we kicked Krill first. Then we kicked Noob, as I just previously explained. So now we're looking for a player, right? Now we need a new player. So we've already, since the start of the season, we've already kicked 2 players off the original roster. So now it's just Faded, Fathom, and me from the original 5. We've brought in 2 new players, which is SMD slash TF2 Africa and his ex-teammate Fiji. So now we need a scout replacement. We bring in this player called Kale. Okay. So the new characters in the story. We've got Kale, TF2 Africa. So I've already talked a little bit about TF2 Africa. TF2 Africa slash SMD, now he's on Demoman. And the things I've mentioned about him as a personality, well, let's see. He's not the most talkative compers in terms of communication, but he's serviceable, right? So in game, I mean, he's mostly good. His out of game persona is questionable. So after scrims, me, Faded, and SMD would sometimes just chill after the game and chill in VC and talk, right? So we did that once or twice, and it was honestly pretty fun. He was a chill guy to talk to. Faded was a chill guy to talk to as well. They're all chill people, and I had fun just, getting to know my teammates better and maybe becoming more friendly with them, becoming like friends, because we found some easy topics to talk about, and it was interesting to learn more about these people. So after like 1 or 2 nights of this, there's this one time where basically we were talking for a bit, and then he's like, all right, I'm going to go talk to some of my other friends. Do you want to come along to our Discord server? So basically we were like, yeah, sure, why not? Because, the other people might be really chill as well, and I will never say no for a chance to talk to more people, to make some new friends, and to really just experience yourself and learn about some other people that you probably wouldn't have talked to before. So we go to his server, and immediately there's some red flags that jump out about the server, okay? Like some very odd things. Main thing is there's already, I think, some slurs, like people just typing out slurs in the text channels of the server. There's this person who is, so we joined this voice channel with 2 other people, and one person is extraordinarily weird. They're just like, their head is literally like in the clouds. They're talking like their head is in the clouds. They're just all over the place. Nothing wrong with that, but it's just peculiar, right? The other person is just straight racist and ableist and kind of toxic. And really, both of them are, as soon as TF2 Africa, Eddie SMD joined in the voice channel, he kind of became a different person. Like, his mannerisms were still the same, but he was clearly more comfortable with these people. When you're more comfortable, I guess the truer you comes out. And the truer him was to match the energy of this other person. And as I just described with this other person, this guy was kind of toxic, was kind of racist. And he just said the N-word and is like, it's supposed to be funny. It was like a joke. But I don't think saying the N word is ever funny. There's like no way you can spin that to actually be funny because you're just being edgy and you're just trying to be racist for, I don't know. I don't know what people saying the N word, what they think, right? Like, especially nowadays when speech has become a lot more, I don't even want to say censored because censor has a negative connotation. I think it's actually good that we move away from bad language, right? Because it's hurtful. It's not good. It's unconstructive. It doesn't help anything except for, the shock value. So basically, what I'm getting at is this guy who I thought was friendly and someone I could be friends with, turns out he has friends with racist people. And he is kind of racist and he's kind of I don't think he's that racist because he wasn't really partaking in it, but he was definitely way more of a dickhead than I originally thought. This guy was just trolling people in servers, which can be funny, but it got really serious to the point where they were like straight up getting to the point of, I think, harassment, where they were like following this guy that they were trolling across multiple servers, just like following him around all over the place, just making his gameplay experience awful, which, you do that once or twice, it's like, ha ha ha, that's pretty funny. And then you just keep following him. At that point, it's just harassment. It's actual harassment. Like, can you imagine doing that? Can you imagine being on the receiving end of that? I would really not want to play the game, which was their goal. They wanted him to not play the game, which coming in, it was really confusing, right? I was like, why do you guys have a vendetta against this guy that you were trying to troll? And it's like, I don't know, because, and literally this guy, SMD, TF2 Africa, his reasoning for stuff like this was, it's funny. It's funny to troll people. Yeah, well, it was very weird. So this was the first time that I got into a glimpse of, okay, this guy actually might be kind of a toxic asshole. He's not actually, like a really good guy. We play more games. And then out of the blue, I think there was a day or a couple of days where I had to go and I wasn't available and I couldn't play the game. And out of the blue, TF2 Africa, this guy just decides to quit the team. SMD decides to quit the team. And the reasoning that he gave our team leader for quitting the team was because God told me to. Just let that sink in. This guy, so coming into the team, I didn't think this guy was a nutcase or that weird at all, right? Then it comes into that incident where I'm like, okay, this guy's a little bit of a dickhead, a toxic dickhead. He really takes trolling a little bit too far, but he's still serviceable as a teammate. Teammates are never going to be perfect. I don't want to really be friends with him anymore, but I can still play with him as a teammate. Now he's just turned up into a straight loony. This guy saying, I quit the team because God told me to. Okay. Honestly, when I first heard that, I was like, this is kind of funny. Because, that's clearly not going to be a reason you're expecting when you're like, okay, why are you quitting the team? Because God told me to. What? So this guy, besides just quitting the team because God told me to, a little before this, he started getting into arguments with Kale, who was one of the players that we had picked up to basically complete our 6th player, and Fathom, which was one of the original 4. They had started arguing because it was mainly Fathom and SMD/TF2 Africa. They've been arguing because this I agreed with Fathom on, though not the way that Fathom handled it. Fathom took kind of offense to him being such a dickhead and such a troll, right? Because basically it's such a toxic and dickheadish and really dumb behavior, really quite immature, because this guy was supposedly 25 too, and he's acting like so immature with this trolling shit. And Fathom, even being so much younger, at least recognized that This shit is really stupid, right? And basically called him out, I think, in the server. So they had this long back and forth, just spamming and clogging up the text channels on our team server. And Kale, in the middle of that, somehow just joined in. And I haven't really introduced Kale yet. But I think the main thing you can just say about Kale is this guy is what you would think of as textbook annoying. He's got an annoying voice. He just talks too much. He says things in annoying ways, like just the way he constructs his sentences. It's like you want to communicate your thoughts, and somehow you picked one of the most annoying ways to say those thoughts. And this was especially bad in the beginning. Like, I think it got better as the season went on, but this was especially bad in the beginning, and it kind of still maintained at least some level of that throughout the rest of the season. Okay, so that's all you need to know about Kale right now. Just textbook annoying. So of course he hops into this big debate that Fathom and SMD are having, right? And it just becomes into this giant messy thing where Fathom oh my god. So now we have to talk about Fathom, okay? Fathom is a different kind of annoying. He is the high ego annoying. The person who is unbelievably high ego, who thinks super highly of himself. So I'm going to flesh out his character a little bit more as we continue on. But we're going to start with just that basic description, right? So one of the facets of having such an ego is that when arguments happen and sometimes they get messy and people don't apologize, Fathom will do really immature. And keep in mind, Fathom is one of the players that is still in high school, right? So this guy's still in high schooler. Fathom is one of the players who is still high schooler, and he has a high ego. So he'll do just really dramatic things. So after this whole argument happened, Fathom decides to leave the server. Just leaves the team server as like a rage quit. And it's like, what is happening now? Somehow our team, and this is all before the season has started. The season has literally not even started yet. And these people are already beefing and fighting, and people are already like doing like these dramatic exits of servers even though they haven't fully quit the team. It's just like such drama queens out of so many people. So basically, I think this incident where they're fighting is before the server, right? Or before the season. So these people, SMD, Fathom, and Kale, they're already kind of like all beefing with each other. It's mainly Kale and Fathom versus SMD, right? So there's already a little bit of animosity between SMD and Kale and Fathom. Now, our first match of the season is coming up. And SMD goes on a trip to New Orleans. Well, that's perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with that. But basically, he's going to miss our first week, right? So we play the match. We have a ringer. We have this guy called Thunder, who is a great guy, and he rings for us a lot, and he plays for us. And it's a really close match. It's funny because I'm talking about lessons from the season, but I'm focusing very little on the actual season in the game because the team drama is what is unbelievable and what I want to talk about, right? So anyway, we win the match. It was a very close game, 5-4, but we win the match. The main thing that I want to stress from this is our team one match, and SMD had to go, right? Because he went to New Orleans on some kind of trip. So he's gone. So now this is in between our week one match and week two match. Matches are every week. So this is in that week after our first match, and we're going to play our second match. This is when the blow up starts to happen. This is when, as I alluded to before, TF2 Africa decides to leave the team. SMD decides to leave the team, and he tells our team leader, because God told me to. Okay, so he decides to leave the team, and now we're in this situation where, again, we're at 5 people. We're perennially having a revolving door in this team. We're bringing players in, and we're kicking them out. This is such an unstable team, and I've already seen like 3 or 4 new teammates come into this team, right? So TF2 Africa's out, but this is not the end of his story, right? He says basically he's out of this team because God told him to, but I mean, that's a bullshit reason. It's probably because, I would say part of it is he got annoyed with Kale and Fathom at some way, and also maybe because he thought like the team wasn't as good as he originally thought, right? Because his goal, one of the reasons he joined this team was that the previous team that he played with Fiji on, they'd gotten to top 6 in playoffs, like 6th place. And he was like, if I'm going to be playing again, I'm going to be playing in newcomer again. It's going to be a waste of time if I don't play first place, or if I don't get first place. So I think part of the thing, well, he says because God told him to. I think it's because he got annoyed at some of our teammates here. And also that he felt that our general team skill level probably wasn't going to get to first place. So he thought, yeah, fuck it, if I'm not going to get first place, what's the point of even playing? Right? My goal was to win, and if we're not going to win, this is just a waste of time. So he leaves. So our team's at 5 players again. We're again looking for a 6th player, but this time for Demo Man, right? So now we're still waiting for people, and while we're trying to get like a permanent 6th player into our team, we're constantly bringing in ringers, right? So our week 2 match comes around, and we play with Thunder again, who was our substitute again for week 1. And we win this match super handedly, 5-0. And at this point, it's just really funny and really sad that we've literally played 2 matches in the season, and we literally still haven't played with like a full team roster, right? Because Thunder is a subs. He is already playing on a different team in a higher skill division. So this guy like cannot be actually on our team because he's already registered on another team. And we've already played 2 matches in the season with him. It's like, okay, this roster instability that we've been having, when is it going to fix? I remember our whole team, I was talking with some of the people, was like, damn, when is this going to happen? When are we going to fix this, right? I think this is around the time. Actually, I should have mentioned, me and Fiji switched classes. So I originally came in a soldier, right? But he had so much more experience as soldier. I wanted the best chance for our team to win, right? And I thought that since he had such more experience on soldier playing in previous seasons and he was more comfortable on that, and I had understood a lot of like the meta mechanics that I had to do, we decided to switch. So I was playing on med, he's on soldier now, right? Just a detail to keep whoever's listening to this up to date. That there was no drama involved. As you'll come to find out at the end, Fiji was probably my favorite teammate just because he had the most level head compared to fucking everybody else in this fucking team, right? Okay. 2 weeks have passed. 2 weeks of matches have passed. We still don't have a demo man, right? We're always ringing people, bringing in people as ringers. So it was at this point, as we're still looking for demo mans, apparently there was like 1 or 2 days where I wasn't playing. I was just doing something else. And apparently this is where TF2 Africa comes back. SMD comes back. Apparently they bring him in as a ringer because this guy, despite quitting the team, he's still playing the game or something. They bring him in as a ringer for 1 or 2 scrims. And apparently he just completely throws the game. Okay? This guy is just throwing the game. Like, he doesn't care. He's just trolling around. He's bringing his trolling antics, but now into our team. And it's just like, oh my God, this guy is so annoying. So after that experience, we decide we're fully done with him. We cut this guy out completely from our team. But, I mean, unbelievable episode that we've had with him so far. This guy just comes in, brings in toxic friends, just gets into a spat with 2 of our players, then leaves the team and says it's because God told him to, and then comes back for our 1 night of scrims and just completely fucks everything up. Okay, so we're still looking for a demo man. Week 3 comes around. We're gonna have our match. Before our match, we pick up this demo man and we play a few scrims with him. Now, this guy is called Kingpin. He is a really, really good demo man. Like, by all means, he would be a hard carry. He was just top DPMing. He was just hitting so many pipes. He was clearly a very skilled player. But as I've said, the one lesson that you must take from this season and from interacting with TF2 players, the one lesson I've learned is people are immature. They're either irresponsible or immature, or they're obnoxious. And this guy was just like Fathom. And I haven't even fully explained Fathom yet, but I gave a brief description, which is large ego. This guy was much of the same. Large ego, and he would constantly beef with Kale. So this is when Kale got way more annoying. Basically, this guy and Kale would just... He would, like, verbally... kind of not really abuse, but he'd like really call out Kale and things that Kale were not doing correctly. Because I was playing med, and a lot of the times I'd get forced, which means basically something bad happened to me, right? But this kind of bad thing is preventable if Kale does his job as the pocket scout. He's like the person who should be protecting me most of the time, right? And these bad things that happen, they should be preventable if he does his job. And these things are happening, and Kingpin is like, okay, it's clearly because Kale is not doing his job. And to be fair, Kale kind of wasn't doing his job. But he would like say this during the during like our scrims and during the game, and just be like, Kale. And he wouldn't say it really in the nicest way. It would be kind of aggressive and, kind of annoying. And Kale, well, despite being annoying, I can understand his reaction. He just got defensive. And, he'd say stuff like, I don't know what you want me to do, and stuff like that, But, of course, his voice is annoying as well. But the way he'd say it, while the sentiment I understand, because, Kingpin is not being very nice. The way he said it still somehow just was very annoying. And so now we're probably going to try and bring on Kingpin into this team, right? But this guy, he's so good, but already one issue that might happen is he's going to be arguing with Kale a lot of the time. So week 3 comes around, we play him as a match, and we're trying to get him onto the team, and we're trying to tell the admins to get him onto the team, but it's going really slow for some reason. They're not letting him onto the team. So we play the match, we use him as a ringer, and we play the match, and we completely destroy the other team. Okay, and largely because of this guy, because he's really good at Demoman. So we win, and it's like, okay, I think we actually now have a good shot of becoming first place in Newcomer. So our scouts are probably the weakest. Kale and Faded, they're not bad scouts, but they're really mid. I think compared to like the best scouts in Newcomer, they're kind of mid. They're not bad. They can farm against bad players, but they're not going to be carries, right? The main strength were our soldiers. Fiji and Fathom were really good. And Kingpin, if we had this guy was insane also on demo, right? We just fucking destroyed in this week 3 match. After the week 3 match, we learned news that Kingpin has been denied. He can't join our team. He can't join our team. And why is it that he can't join our team? It's because he has too much experience and he's deemed too good by the admins. So Kingpin was denied off the team because he was too good. Okay? So at this point, we have kicked a player. We've kicked 2 players. We've had a player leave. And we had a replacement player just be denied on joining our team. On top of that, we've already got the characters in our players. We've got one guy who is kind of annoying, one guy who's also kind of annoying in a different way, and then and then all these other people that have kind of been revolving doors around the team. They've all been mostly characters as well. So it's already been just quite a mess. So at this point, we we've played 3 matches in the entire season. That means 3 weeks have all gone by. And in these 3 weeks, in these 3 weeks, we have not played with an actual full roster. The first 2 weeks, we played with a ringer, a substitute player who's not even on our team. And the third week, he's also technically a sub because he wasn't allowed to join our team. So now we're finally going on to week 4. We finally find Demo Man. He's called Rohi. And he's a pretty chill guy. He's quieter than Kingpin. Doesn't talk as much and doesn't fight with Kale either. But he's pretty good. He's not as good as Kingpin, but he does what is necessary as a Demo Man. And that was just what we needed. So finally, we had our 6 players, right? We finally had a team that we could work together and play matches with, and we could actually, start practicing together as a team and start getting better and actually, start doing well. So we have our team. We basically, I think we go into week 4 and we win our week 4 match. So we're 4-0. We're basically at the top of the newcomer standings right now. In the season, in the newcomer division, we are either second place or first place behind one other team. So then our week 5 match is against this team, because how the weekly matches are determined is usually based on you're playing another team that's has around the same record as you. So we basically were playing the other undefeated team that week. So this team, I don't know, some of the players on our team are very, very astute people who also, it's a double-edged sword. Even though they complain a lot and they really tilt sometimes, that one player, Fathom, he really tilts a lot and he complains about players a lot also. But at the same time, while it's annoying, it's also good in the sense that he's really aware and will do research into these other players, like looking at their past experience and being like, wow, this guy's played a lot, and on this team that we're going to be playing, we should be looking out for this player and this player, which helps our team prepare and, usually get better. So he was looking at this team and he saw that a bunch of these players are really, really experienced and have already played a bunch of times on different teams and in different leagues, even around the world, because some of these people were European and they were playing in the European League before. And then we play our match, we lose. It was a really close match, 3-4, but this guy, our teammate Fathom, he was very tilt heavy during the game. As soon as we started losing rounds, he was basically his favorite catchphrase was, "What are we doing? How are we throwing these?" And it's just a lot of times when we were just not in good positions in rounds, he would say things like this, and it just did not help with team morale, right? It was okay, we get it. We could have won, but it doesn't really help how much he was complaining. And it was we should focus on the positives, and we should definitely also focus on the negatives and what to improve. But dwelling on them and saying and just, moaning about it is kind of unproductive, right? So that was one thing that happened out of the match. We had our first big moan, annoying session from Fathom where he was quite tilted because we lost the match and he thought there were a lot of places where we could have done better. And also, since he is, I think, the best player on our team since we didn't have Kingpin, he was also performing pretty well during that match. But obviously, since we lost, it's just he kind of had that feeling where it's what more can I do? I've done all of this and somehow we still lose. It's just what more should I do? So after the match, one of our other players, the Faded, who is the other player that's still on the roster from the original 4 people from before I joined, he did a little bit of digging. And he found out that one of the players that was on that team that we just played, the team that just beat us, they had an alt account. And this was a bannable, or it was a bannable offense in RGL, the league that we play in. And he figured this out really quickly. He searched up, he made a little short 1-minute video that was quite funny that showcased how he just did his detective work. And somehow this fueled the flame, this fan the flames of a reoccurring thing throughout the season where this team hates the admins that run our division. Because first of all, I mean, they like denied a bunch of our players. They denied Kingpen and they denied some other people that we wanted to play with just because they're too good or for really arbitrary reasons. But then they don't stick with their own standards, and other teams are allowed to skate by with certain players, even though they have like even more experience than the players that we had tried to bring in. So a prime example was this particular team. Like Faded sent this information about this person on the other team that was alting, and this person wasn't banned like ever. So like the admins were just so inconsistent. They didn't seem to follow any of the rules. They didn't seem to like follow any of their own rules consistently. They were allowing these players on that other team to play even though like a lot of them were super experienced, and by all means that would have disqualified them from playing on that team because we had like the same situation and they were disqualified from the team. So it was just a lot of things where people on our team felt like we were being treated unfairly because things that were denied to us were being accepted for other teams. It was like, how are the admins coming to these decisions? And it got kind of, I mean, the admins were kind of incompetent, but at some point we started, like some of the people started getting into more personal attacks of character on the people, and it got a little messy and, you know, not clean, not what I would have wanted to see in what was happening there. So this whole situation, we lose this match. Then we go into this second match. And this match is the match that we play against this team. And this second team that we're playing here, that is also around like 4 wins, 1 loss, same as us, similar record. So this team was interesting because the player that I said, Fathom, and I think some of the Faded as well, some of the players on our team basically never wanted to scrim this other team because of how toxic they were. So it was, I mean, I think that's a fair reason because, you know, you don't want to play with toxic people. And apparently like Fathom and one of the team leader of that other team, like they often were, I guess, just abusive to each other or just like had a lot of chat messages, and the two of them had some kind of beef. Anyway, there was a reason why we never scrimmed this team, because they were basically on a no scrim list. And it was because for a variety of reasons, either because they're toxic or I don't know. The main one that was said was that they were toxic. However, this team was quite good as well, and we never scrimmed them throughout the season, so we never got to really assess their skill level by actually playing against them. So we came into this match, we were kind of confident because, you know, it's we both have the same record, and we've been playing pretty well in the previous matches before this one, right? Then we go into this match, and we get completely destroyed. 0-5. They win 5-0. And in the middle of the match, our player Fathom, during halftime, he thought that he had some ping and internet issues, and we spent literally 30 minutes of halftime of him restarting his router and his internet, trying to fix the issue. And then we came back and we lost another 2 rounds and got completely curb stomped, right? So again, after this match, morale was really low, and it was a lot of the same. It wasn't as bad as the previous match where Fathom was, you know, really, really, really complaining because even he didn't do that well in this match, so he couldn't have as much of that say, where it's like, I'm pounding and somehow we're still not winning these. But he still did go on his little rants of basically saying, you know, we were playing super stupid, and honestly, to be fair, we were playing stupid, but, you know, the way you describe these things, saying true things in a hostile or unconstructive way still is not very helpful, right? And that was basically what he was doing. He was saying all these things in a very annoying and unconstructive way that wasn't helpful to other people, right? It wasn't really describing, it was describing problems, but it wasn't providing solutions, and it wasn't like giving us a plan on how to improve, right? And it was just really done out of passion, out of the frustration that he was feeling after losing that match. Because, I get it for him, since I think he had personal beef with that other team. It really sucks to, just get completely curb stomped. So basically, after that match, we're now 4 wins, 2 losses, but the morale of the team has really dipped, right? Because we're losing 2 straight in a row, and this last one wasn't even close at all. It was just a complete destruction. So now we're going into week 7, our 7th match, and this is a team we should be able to beat because we've scrimmed them a lot of times before earlier in the season, but even throughout the season, we've played them a few times, and we've been able to beat them almost all the time, right? But before this match, this was the week I went on a spring break trip, okay? So I was gone for a large chunk of the time. So they were constantly already bringing ringers in for me, right? So there would be 5 players that are usually on the team and then 1 player subbing in. But during this time also, one of our players faded. He just decided to just go completely AWOL. And when I mean completely AWOL, I mean literally completely AWOL. He has not responded to a single message since like 2-3 weeks ago. Basically around the time, a few days after I had to go for like spring break or whatever, this guy just completely disappears off the faces of the earth. His Discord is never on. He's never online. We can't reach him, and he just stops showing up to scrims. So basically, now when I was gone for my spring break, this other guy was also gone, and somehow we're playing with 2 ringers the whole entire time, right? So it's already not a good recipe because basically, having more substitute players and not having your full roster the whole time is just going to break up team cohesion. It's not going to allow everybody to communicate as well as they have because, they're not as familiar with these new ringers or people that are coming in. And especially, there was no timeline on when he was going to come back because this guy literally just completely stopped responding to everything. It was like he actually disappeared off the face of the earth. And all of us, we all like individually and through the team server tried to contact him in various ways. But of course, since this is all online and we're playing video games, we don't actually know him in real life. We can't really call him that way. And so he's just gone and we can't reach him. And this guy is just, even now as I'm recording this, like 3 or 4 weeks after the pack, he still has like not said a peep. So, honestly a little concerning, like what could have happened. Maybe something bad did happen, or maybe he just decided to be a little bit of a schizo, just like some of our other previous teammates, and, call it quits on the team without really even telling any of us. We will never know. But the impacts we do know. The impacts were that we just kept having ringers, and then for our match, basically we needed 2 ringers. Because one of our other players that was not him, I managed to come back for the match, right? So then we'd have 5 people. But one of those 5 people, he was also busy on the match day, so he couldn't play. Which then meant we had 4 players out of 6, and we needed 2 ringers. So basically on that match day, we brought in 2 ringers. And this team, it's not as much of a beef as that other team where we got 5-0'd. But they aren't exactly the most friendly either. A little toxic. And basically, we wanted to play with the same ringer that we've had for week 1 and week 2, right? We wanted to play with the same ringer that we had because he's pretty good and he would be playing on a different class, but he was a valuable teammate and we'd had fun playing with him before. So we asked if we could use him in the match, and they denied it. They were like, no, he's too good. So this is already a complication because we need 2 ringers, and we can't even get our first one. So basically, we had to go around, look for other teams in the same skill division, and ask for players on like those other teams if they're willing to ring for us. So we found 2 players. Unfortunately, just as a frank assessment of their skills, they weren't as good as the people that they were replacing. Like the scout one was, I still think he wasn't as good, and the soldier, we definitely lost something, right? Our main soldier who couldn't play that day, he was way better. Or not way better, but he was definitely noticeably better. And I think it could have impacted the match. So before this Week 7 match, we have a pregame, where the pregame is just scrims before a game, right? And the scrims don't go very well because basically our carry person, our best player, Fathom, who is also the very annoying one, he has a very specific way he wants to play the game on this specific map, right? He really likes to play sniper. And if you want to be successful as sniper on this map, you need a lot of team coordination in the sense that your teammates have to protect you when the other team tries to, overwhelm you and like attack you and really just nosedive on you, only focusing on you. So then your teammates got to protect you. Well, we're not very good at that. Even when we had most of our team, we were sometimes successful at that, but it was only because we were playing against worse teams, right? And this team was better than most of the worst teams that we scrimmed against. But in this pregame and during the match, we also had 2 ringers who just weren't accustomed to the protocols that are necessary to like protect your sniper, right? So basically, it was already just going to be a recipe for disaster. It was just probably not going to work out well. And that's what happened during our pregame. He just got focused a lot of the time. And he got really frustrated, our player Fathom, and he basically took it out on one of our ringers. And one of our ringers wasn't really having that, and he got into a bit of a passive-aggressive argument with Fathom as well. So basically, both of them were kind of being dickheads, but as I've said, Fathom really is kind of a egotistical, immature, annoying brat sometimes, right? So us as the remaining teammates that were there, we tried to not take sides and just resolve the end of the argument, right? But in that way where we didn't really take a side, I think Fathom felt affronted in a way that his teammates on his team weren't even really taking his back. And from his perspective, I can understand that because, you have teammates, and if they don't even take your back, it's a shitty feeling. And it's like, why do I even play with these people? Well, yeah, I mean, from that perspective, it makes sense. Just from our perspective, though, I mean, he was being an annoying brat. And his fight, this passive-aggressive fight that he was having with the ringer was really not helpful and kind of unwarranted. And we were more on the side of the ringer, I would say. So anyway, basically, he storms off after the end of our pregame. And so it's like 30 minutes before our match. And he just goes AWOL for like 20 minutes. And we think he like rage quit because, he got into this argument. Which meant we might have had to had 3 ringers. Literally half of our team would not have been on our team playing in that match. They would have been substitute players. And it was a very dicey situation because basically Faded, Fathom, and Fiji, those 3 players are team leaders and are the people who can actually communicate with the other team and suggest substitutes and stuff. 2 of them are gone. One of them went completely AWOL, and the other one just couldn't be there that night. And then Fathom, our 3rd team leader, he's the one who just rage quit, which means the remaining 3 players, we're not team leaders, and we can't even suggest substitute players. So, if anything, it was as if everything that could go wrong did go wrong that day. And it was like, holy shit. Are we going to have to play with 3 ringers, or are we going to have to forfeit the match because we can't even get a ringer? So anyway, luckily Fathom did come back. But, I mean, just because of the team cohesion issues, mainly because of having 2 ringers and, not playing with our full team, we lost that match, right? We kept it close at some points. We were actually coming back, and we had a real shot of actually winning it. And who knows what would have been different if we actually won that match. But we didn't win the match. And Fathom, kind of quit right afterwards. And so after that, basically, Fathom decided, I think that was the last straw. He didn't want to play on the team anymore. And, I mean, granted, given with what's been going on, I don't really blame him. So first of all, even though he is an annoying brat, he isn't really getting the support of all his teammates, either in game, like you feel like he's not being supported and his calls aren't being like properly acknowledged, and he's not getting like the teammate assists that he needs to like be really good, and also just out of game as like teammates, right? It didn't feel like probably for him that we were supporting him in these kinds of arguments that he was getting with other people. So, and on top of that, with how chaotic the team's been, we're now on a 3-game losing streak, and we have one player who is literally permanently gone, and we have no way of knowing how we can get another player. And at this point in the season, there's a roster lock, which means you can't even add players anymore. And the only way you can like keep having other players play that aren't on your main roster is through that substitute method, which is obviously not ideal, right? You want to actually have a stable roster, but now we couldn't even do that if we wanted to because we couldn't add new players to our team. So at the end, Fathom quit. And honestly, it makes sense, but the way that he did it was just kind of cringe, right? He's just like, I quit, and he said it's because he's busy, but it's like, bro, he said he's busy, he quits, and then you see him like the next day ringing for other teams, like him being the substitute player for other teams, which means he clearly still has the time to, play for other teams, just not for our team. So anyway, after that, when we only have 4 players for real now, we had 5 players, and now we've lost 2, one just completely gone and one who's left the team. And we have one player, Fiji, like he had to go that previous team. And now, since he's in the process of interviewing for jobs also, he can't play as much as he used to, which meant we're going to scrim less, and certain days we might even need more ringers. So we're permanently going to have 2 ringers, and maybe even have 3 ringers at some point. And at that point, it was just like, is this even worth it? Our player, Kale, he was like, yeah, this isn't worth it because, I don't want to be playing with 2 ringers all the time. And it's just not going to be worth it even if we make playoffs. We're just going to have to always deal with ringers, and we're not having a stable roster, and we're not having good scrims. It's just like, and Fiji is always busy. It's just like, this is not fun anymore. And after a while of discussing and thinking about it, the rest of us kind of agreed. And then so our team died before even making it to the end of the season. We didn't even play our last match of the season. And lessons from the season. What have I learned? Number 1, can't trust any player to be responsible with their time or with, notifying people or being a good teammate in that sense. You also can't, number 2, you have to have a very low bar and low expectation of the maturity level of these players, especially relating with either responsibility, but also with ego, with being humble people, with being good teammates, and with not being toxic. And number 3, lesson I've learned, what can go wrong will go wrong. We had so many players go in and out of the team. We had everything that could have possibly gone wrong with trying to add new players. Like, we had players that were really weird and schizo and fucking just, I don't know, just completely weirdos. And then we had people that were good but kind of toxic, and then they weren't even allowed to join the team. And then, finally, what could go wrong will go wrong. We had a player who literally just completely disconnected from the internet and is no longer showing up on Discord anywhere and not responding to anything. What can go wrong will go wrong. So what's the final lesson learned from all of this? From all this kerfuffle? Well, I think I can say the final lesson is don't play competitive TF2, man. Just don't do it.